A few weeks ago, I saw a video that Jazer Lee made, I think that's how you pronounce it, about like the 5 common mistakes that beginner pianists make. So I wanted to try to make a video kind of like that, but for saxophone players. So in this video, I'm going to kind of address the 5 most common beginner mistakes that I see. I'm also going to try to give some tips and solutions for kind of ways that you can avoid these pitfalls. And I'm going to count down from 5 to 1. So make sure you stick around to the end to see what the number 1 mistake is. Hey, it's my son's 5th birthday today. Could you play happy birthday for him? Yeah, sure. Do you have the sheet music? The sheet music? Okay, so this is one I see all the time from beginner saxophonists, and that is not learning anything by ear. The weird thing about this one is it's not true across all beginner instrumentalists. I remember in high school, I had a teacher who would ask if something was in tune or basically anything related to like aural training, and he would say guitar players aren't allowed to answer because they oftentimes had the best ears. I think a lot of the reason is because most of them just use their ears to learn stuff. Whether it was learning songs or even just tuning their instrument, they kind of did it all by ear, and they weren't super interested in learning how to read sheet music. So it's interesting because I see the opposite happening with beginner saxophonists and really other woodwind instruments. Now, one of the best solutions to this is to try to just learn something by ear. So the next time you hear something that you really like and you want to try to play, just try to learn it by ear before Googling for the sheet music. Now, if you've never done this before, it can kind of feel like a daunting process. So I've actually made a video about how I learned stuff by ear. So I'll try to link that in the description. That way you can check it out if it might be helpful. Like I said, it can be a little intimidating at first, but it'll help every other aspect of your playing. And it's better to learn at the early stages of your playing than the later stages. So number 4 is never practicing with a metronome, and I'm guilty of this sometimes. Sometimes it can feel like a hassle to pull out the metronome and play along, or you tell yourself, oh, my time's fine, or I'll just follow the drummer. But really the time is everyone's responsibility, and it can always be better. Time is super important to me because it's one of the few things that non-musicians can really pick up on. If you constantly slow down on a song that's supposed to be high energy, it can really just ruin the vibe of it, and the crowd will notice. Now, the obvious solution to this is to just sit down and play with the metronome. There are tons of free metronome apps you can download on your phone, or there are even internet versions, like if you just Google metronome, you can find one on the internet for free that's great. I think there are even some on YouTube. Honestly, I just keep a tab open on my computer with a metronome up at all times. That way, whenever it's time to practice, it's really convenient for me to just open up the tab and click start on the metronome. You almost want to make it more convenient to play with a metronome than not. Also, if you get bored with playing a metronome on all 4 beats, there are a couple things you can do to kind of mix it up. One is put the metronome on beats 2 and 4. Now, if that gets boring, you can try putting the metronome on only 4. I've even seen some people play with the metronome like on the downbeat every 8 bars or something ridiculous. I think Chad LB has done that, but I can't demonstrate that. So there are a lot of different ways you can practice with the metronome, so just get creative and try to be consistent about it. So I actually didn't have anyone spell this next one out for me until I was in college, and it was actually by a piano teacher I had. And that is, don't practice mistakes. I'm still guilty of this one sometimes, and maybe even more than the metronome one. It's easy to be practicing something, and then you get frustrated because you keep messing up, and then because you're frustrated, you speed up, and then you end up messing up more, and it's just like a snowball effect of nothing good. You just end up teaching yourself bad muscle memory, which becomes hard to break. So if this starts to happen, just take a little break, relax, and try to start slower. You should be able to play it anywhere upwards of 3 times in a row perfectly at a tempo before you move on to the next tempo. So try to do it consistently at one tempo 3 times in a row, and then speed it up a couple clicks after you get that, and keep going until you either can't do it 3 times in a row or it's all the way up to speed. And if you start making mistakes as you speed up the tempo, just take another break and slow it back down to the last tempo that you were able to practice it at consistently without making mistakes. I guess I'll practice. Now, this is actually one of the few things I felt like I did right in the early stages of my playing as a saxophonist, and that is building a good daily warm-up routine. Now, I have my high school saxophone teacher to thank for this because he used to always tell me, tell yourself you love sound exercises and eventually you will, and that actually turned out to be true. Playing the saxophone requires you to use your muscles, and just like athletes don't roll out of bed and go run a marathon, we shouldn't just pick up our horn and start playing a bunch of ridiculous stuff. It's important to warm up your muscles every day, and I actually do jaw stretches every morning too before I play, just to kind of help everything loosen up. So the best way to create a warm-up routine is to just pick some sound exercises like long tones and do them consistently every day at the beginning of each practice session. It's good to do a mix of exercises that are slow and just kind of help you warm up and get your air moving in the right direction. Now, you don't have to spend 2 hours warming up or anything ridiculous, but just try to do 10 to 20 minutes of these exercises. Also, you'll notice your sound drastically improve, which is always awesome. Okay, so the number one mistake that I see beginning saxophone players make is pinching too hard. I think a lot of this has to do with the way the standard embouchure is taught, which is by rolling your bottom lip over your teeth. That tends to encourage pinching and just leads to squeaking and sharp intonation and a whole lot of other bad habits. So there are a few things you can do to avoid this. One is to change your embouchure. I actually did this a few years into playing. The way I do it now is however my mouth is normally when it's closed, I just add the saxophone to that, so I'm not really forming an embouchure or anything. The result is my bottom lip kind of gets rolled out a little bit, and that just helps the reed vibrate more freely. It also just opens up your sound and makes it a lot harder to pinch. Another thing you can do is play a lot of low B flat and overtone matching exercises. This kind of forces you to relax your embouchure and engage your tongue and throat position, which really should be doing most of the work anyways. So that's it for my top 5 beginner mistakes on saxophone. Learning a new instrument, especially as a beginner, can be super overwhelming. There are just so many things to think about, so that's why it's really important to kind of isolate each one early on to just build good muscle memory from the beginning. Also, a lot of times you might not realize what bad habits you're creating, so it could be a good idea to get with a private lesson teacher because they'll be able to help identify and fix them. Anyways, let me know if you like this style of video. I've been doing a few instructional videos, I guess, lately. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.